Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Eric Clayman, along with Stephanie Ritigstein from Jenkins and Clayman. This is Facebook Live, a show that we put on every Thursday at 2 p.m. We've been doing this since the coronavirus pandemic in order to help people who may not have as much access to a law firm as lawyers as they ordinarily did. You can go to our website at jenkinsclayman.com and find a library of all of our Facebook Live presentations, and it really gives you a good background as to how bankruptcy can help you in your financial situation if you are facing a difficult time. This is live today, and of course it's recorded for future use, but if you're watching right now live, you can ask us questions, and we can read them and answer the questions live, or Stephanie and I will make a presentation. Jenkins and Clayman has been practicing bankruptcy law for 30 years or more, and we file the most bankruptcy cases in the southern 2/3 of New Jersey. Right now, we're filing Chapter 7s throughout New Jersey and Chapter 13s in the southern 2/3 of New Jersey. No matter who you choose to be your lawyer in a bankruptcy situation, always make sure it's a law firm that will help you, because you don't want just one lawyer to deal with in case something happens to that lawyer. And be sure to deal with a law firm that's experienced. Stephanie, you're experienced in bankruptcy law, aren't you?
I am. I've been, obviously, as you know, I've been with Jenkins and Clayman since 2004.
Wow.
I know. A long time. So we kind of know what we're doing here. We've been doing solely bankruptcy. I've been doing bankruptcy solely since then. A little bit before that I was doing other areas, but been here since 2004. So we are experienced in this area, and with these times we've had to change how we practice. As we discussed last week, I'm home with my kids, but I'm still trying to stay abreast of what's going on with COVID and with the firm, and I'm happy to be back and see everyone again this week.
That's great. Today we're going to try to help people who are behind with their rent, and that's really a lot of our clientele.
It really is. We've seen a lot, especially, we see a lot always, but this time it's been much more challenging to pay your rent.
Look, it's not that complicated to think about it, because those people who own a home are typically, that's your goal, that's a little higher level person. I mean, you can rent for your whole life, and it's not disparaging, but typically those people who own a home make a little bit more money than those people who rent. So the people who rent typically are more fragile financially.
Absolutely, and a good portion of our clients were out of work, which made it very difficult for them to pay their rent starting in March, and then it took a very long time for them to get unemployment.
Right.
And I think that's what really got everyone behind. So now, before they were even collecting unemployment, they were out of work already for March, April, and almost May, some people. So it was very hard for them to deal with it during that time, and then especially it's hard to catch up.
Right, there was some catch up when the unemployment started and the extra $600.
That's correct. Yes, our clients we were doing well. A lot of people were actually able to get caught up and stay current going forward with that extra $600.
But with our government dysfunction in Washington, we have been unable to convince our government to keep giving people $600 not to work. Right. There's all sorts of policy reasons why that's a good idea or a bad idea, but it's a no idea right now.
That's right. There's no stimulus package right now, and our clients are really struggling, and we're here to explain how we can help and how we can help you maximize your living situation and get the best out of what's going on. There are a lot of options if you're open to moving. Certainly one option, but maybe we should also talk about right now what's going on with the moratorium and how long people can stay in their residence that they're renting.
Right. So even if you receive a summons and complaint right now, in New Jersey, they are not assigning hearing dates. By way of background, a summons and complaint means a lawsuit. Whenever you receive a lawsuit, you must call a lawyer right away.
Absolutely.
If you don't call a lawyer, you're going to lose rights. And if there's a judgment for eviction against you, even a bankruptcy can't slow that down once the evictions restart. So let's take it from step one. If you're behind with rent, your landlord sues you, even if there's no summons and even if there's no hearing date. Talk to a lawyer right away.
You need to know what you can do to save your property.
But the actual physical evictions, Stephanie, they're not happening right now, are they?
Not right now, absolutely not. In fact, they were stayed for a while, and now I believe they're stayed through the end of the year until December 31st, 2020, and we don't know, it could be extended. I think there's a good probability that it will be extended beyond the end of the year.
And that's really puts people, both the landlords and the tenants, in a very confusing situation. We're not exactly sure how it's going to change, but what we can do is tell you what the process is if you call our firm. Stephanie, let's just, before we get into the law somewhere, we have time to get into the law. What happens when a client receives a summons and complaint and they call our law firm?
So typically we'll talk them through what their financial status is and where they are with their rent. We like to find out how far behind you are with the rent and how much your monthly rent is. And that'll help determine whether or not we think that you should file either a Chapter 13 bankruptcy or a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And the differences are that in a Chapter 13, we can help you stay and repay your landlord. And in a Chapter 7, we can help you eliminate and discharge the debt owed to your landlord if you're willing to move out at some point.
At some point.
And right now, the benefit of filing Chapter 7 is that you can still stay there through the end of December and not be evicted and not pay them back.
And not owe the money.
You can eliminate the entire balance that you owe to your landlord. So we talk about all those during our initial consultation to see which is best for you. And it all depends on how far you are behind with the rent, what your current income is, whether or not you're able to resume payments and cure the arrears, or if you're at a place where you said, I've not been able to catch up in a long time and I don't see it happening in the future.
And my next door neighbor has 3 German Shepherds without a leash. And anything you can do to get me out of this rent,
Exactly.
And we have that too, so it can really help people like
There's
that.
a lot of reasons to move, and if you've been fighting with your landlord for years on it, and then now's the time. Let's part ways, wipe out the debt, move on, get a fresh start for you and the landlord.
2 weeks ago, Jeff and I did a budgeting seminar or Facebook presentation. And if you think about it, Stephanie, if someone's behind with their rent, they probably are behind with other things because as priorities go, rent's on top. So if you're behind with your rent, you have other debts and they can be included in a bankruptcy as well, right?
Absolutely. And that's a good time because like you're saying, they do trickle down. So if you're not paying your rent, which is usually your shelter, you want to keep that, the house over the roof over your head, it becomes harder to pay other debts as they become due and owing, including your car. So similarly, if you're behind on your car and we're already considering a Chapter 7, maybe it's a time to walk away from that as well and eliminate that debt, not be responsible, and really get a fresh start that a Chapter 7 can provide. I think that we also look at, when we talk about the budget, we also look at what other debts are behind. If there's a lot of credit card debt that you're also having trouble making your monthly payments on, or your minimums are just getting too high. If you're paying a minimum on each credit card and you're at $1,000 a month, there's options that we can do to help you, especially again in that Chapter 7 context where we can discharge that debt and not have to pay that back.
And the key to a successful bankruptcy filing is to include all bills.
Absolutely.
Clean everything up. First of all, you have a legal obligation when you sign your bankruptcy petition to include all bills.
Absolutely. And a lot of people say, well, I'm current on this bill, I'm current on my Kohl's, I don't want to lose my Kohl's card, I don't want to lose my Walmart. And we understand that, but like Eric is saying, we do have a legal obligation to include them all. And that is the way that it's going to work for you in the future. If you keep a few cards out here and there, you're still going to be paying. So it's not going to benefit you to do the Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy at that point. And look, you also run the risk that they're going to run your credit and cancel that card anyway.
Right. You don't, worst of both worlds, right?
That's right. And
you still owe the money and you're in bankruptcy.
And exactly. You still owe the money. You can't use the card and the bankruptcy is over and you haven't included that debt. So it's really important that we include everyone you owe money to.
If you're trying to keep your credit score high and you think it's a good idea to not include credit cards or not include certain bills, that's not a good idea. And in fact, once you've obtained your Chapter 7 discharge, which takes 4 to 6 months, we have a 720 program that we pay for it. Okay, it's our little gift. We give you the name and email address of someone who handles credit scores. And he says that if you're working and you stay current with everything going forward, within about a year, he can get you up to 720.
And that's great. And I think that's what people's, obviously that's their goal. And a lot of people come in and they say, well, I don't want to file. My credit score is good because they've been making payments and everything every month. But this is really, it's a good time to eliminate all that debt and get a fresh start.
But today's
is
We were
really
supposed
more
to be
about.
focused on landlord tenants, so
Yes.
we're going to do that. Right now in New Jersey, there are 30,000 tenants who are behind with their rent. So Stephanie, if on January 2nd they could all be evicted, that's probably not a practical solution.
Absolutely not. And I think though, that's not, I don't believe that that's really what's gonna happen, but I think that what they're gonna start holding. All right, so as we were saying, once they file the summons and the complaint, they're setting up like a settlement conference. There's no trial date set. The settlement conference is a time for you to maybe meet with a mediator on Zoom or some kind of FaceTime, I believe. Nothing is happening in the physical courtroom. So everything is still being done over Zoom or FaceTime. And after that, if you still can't come to an agreement and the landlord is still intent on moving to evict you, I believe that they will first start scheduling all those eviction hearings after the 31st, beginning in January. So it's going to go back to March, and then it's still going to trickle down. So it's still going to be a very long time until they get to your case. If your case was not filed until November or December 2020, I understand that they won't get to your eviction proceeding until way down the line.
So remember, there's two ways we can help you through bankruptcy. Stephanie and I have spent most of today talking about Chapter 7. Chapter 7 gives you two advantages. Number one, it'll stay or stop all legal proceedings, including the landlord-tenant action, to allow you more time to stay in the property. And number two, it's for free, meaning you will stay in the property for free until you have to be evicted. And as long as you file bankruptcy before the judgment of eviction, before there's a formal court hearing, you can stay there for free and get a fresh start. That's why it's very important if you receive a summons and complaint, you see us right away. Now, I said there's two. There's Chapter 13 we talked about also. If people are behind, we used to file a lot of Chapter 13s. The typical situation is a school teacher who fell behind in July and August rent because summer camp didn't pay what they thought. And then come September, they're making good money. So they resume their rental payments and pay a trustee who takes their money and pays the landlord back.
Right.
There are still people like that out there who had a little bit of time where they weren't doing as well.
Right.
They're back. So our Chapter 13 plans to save your apartment or save your house that you're renting still do work.
Absolutely. And I think that it all determines, it all will be determined based on what you're willing to do or how long you've been in the property, what your rapport is with the landlord, what the total arrears are. If you haven't paid for a year, it's still too difficult to catch up. But if it's only a couple of months, if you were only out of work for 2 months and you're back on track and you're back making the income you were making before, I think it's a great option in Chapter 13 to be able to stay in your apartment or house that you're renting and cure those arrears over a period of 3 to 5 years. And we do that for a lot of our clients, and it's very successful. I think the other option is available when you have a poor relationship with your landlord. You're behind a year. It's just too daunting to catch up. The arrears are just too high.
That's your Chapter 7. Now, I think Congress, when it wrote the bankruptcy code, did think about things like this. So if you do a Chapter 13 to save your house, you're eliminating all your credit card debts and eliminating all your medical bills, at least for the most part. You can eliminate them completely or at least pay them at a reduced rate or over time. But let's say most of our cases are what was referred to as a 0% Chapter 13. Right. So we eliminate all the credit cards, eliminate all the medical bills, and you know what? You can really afford to pay your rent.
Absolutely. Once we take out those other little expenses, then it becomes much more manageable.
So we're doing much more than just stopping the eviction. We're
still helping with it. We're still helping with all your financial needs wrapped into one monthly payment, which is typically really just to pay back the landlord or your car that you're behind.
Right. And the car, right, we can do both at the same time. And there's all sorts of stuff that we can do with car loans, with the IRS, especially if tax returns have been filed and the tax debt is more than 3 years old. We can get rid of the IRS. It's treated just like credit cards and medical bills. It's remarkable.
And it's a really big help to people who have been struggling to pay the IRS $50 to $100 a month for the past 3 to 4 years.
And getting nowhere.
It's not going down. So I think that's a great option. The other thing I wanted to talk about was utilities. Often if you're having trouble paying your rent, you've fallen behind on your utilities. And as of right now, I believe that there's an order in New Jersey that they cannot shut off your utilities until March 31st. Let me just get the correct date. I know it's March 2021. So, sorry, March 15, 2021. So I think that's important to note that while you're struggling, now's the time to get help, but I also want you to know that they're not going to shut off your utilities at this time. So even if you wind up filing a Chapter 7 and staying there for a couple more months, they're not going to shut off your utilities while you're still living there.
But it's also that, generally speaking, a utility debt is just like any other debt that we can get rid of in
And
a
we can
Chapter
include
7.
that in Chapter 7 and in Chapter 13, where you often don't have to pay that debt back.
But if you want to keep using their service, you have to pay a small security deposit, typically about a month, and then they reissue the account in a new name.
It's like a security deposit. They put it towards your new account, so they allow you to keep the account going with PSE&G, South Jersey Gas, AC Electric, whatever your utility company is.
So even after March 15th, if you're behind with your rent by filing bankruptcy, we will keep utilities on. The shutting off your utilities is viewed as an act to collect the debt, because that's what they're doing. They're not giving you service because you didn't pay.
You're right.
So the bankruptcy helps people who are behind with their utilities as well.
And once you file the bankruptcy, it stops all collections, so they cannot continue to collect, and we can eliminate the debt. But to keep the account going, you pay a small security deposit to allow you to have utilities active in either the current residence or wherever you're moving to. I think it's also important to note that right now you can't, I know we talked about the December 31st date. Right now, the state of New Jersey, they cannot lock you out of your apartment. Even if they were in the process before COVID, you are still safe and you can still remain in the property until the end of the year or until further order of the court for the state of New Jersey. There could be a new executive order that'll come about. But right now you can safely stay there without coming home to a lockout and having a sheriff at your door to change the lock. So that's
not a real good feeling.
Right.
And coming home and having the water shut off, that happened once. I was living in a condo. I was Karen, but they got it confused and they shut off my water. Came home, flushed the toilet, nothing happens. Boy, that's a terrible feeling. And if it happens, we can get the water turned on, the electric and gas turned on.
The filing of the bankruptcy, of course, can get those turned back on immediately. And we can, like we said, stop the collection, but make sure that it gets back on within a relatively short period of time.
A little nuance in the law. Some of the landlords are now including non-financial reasons for evictions.
Yes.
Such as dog barking, children are noisy. There's a barbecue grill that didn't belong on the deck.
They're trying to find other reasons to evict you other than rent so that they can move forward.
Even if they use that, the bankruptcy can still be filed, even has nothing to do with money. You're current with your rent or whatever other reason. We can still stop the eviction action to give you a chance to think about whether you really want to stay there. But the other reason that they're doing that now is because the CDC guidelines against eviction really talk about payment. So they're trying to give another reason why they'd be allowed to evict you.
One other thing, of course, if you're able to pay your rent during this time, should you? Absolutely. We would like you, the goal is to, if you can get back on track, then we can help you with the arrears that you had before. But I think it's really important that if you're able to, because I think what happened was a lot of people found out there was moratorium and just stopped paying. But really the best practice is still to pay your rent if you're in a position to do so. And if your rent, if your income has returned to what it was before COVID, I think that it's important to do that so you don't get further behind.
Speak to your landlord, and if you can't work out a deal, then give us a call.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't been sued, it's still a good idea to speak to an attorney.
Absolutely, because a lot of landlords are not filing lawsuits at this time, but they will be coming, and it's still important to protect yourself, protect your rights. If you want to stay there, we can help you. If you want to move, we can help you. We really are here to see what's best for you, and to do that, we'll look at how much you owe, how long you've been there, your rapport with your landlord, and what's really in your best financial interest.
And that's a good summary. And when you call our office, it's not judgmental. And we talk to people all the time who are having financial difficulties. It's funny, I was walking around the mall a few years ago. We don't walk around malls anymore. And some guy said hi to me. And my wife said, "Oh, you know him from basketball?" And I just said, "Yes, but I didn't know him from basketball. I know him from here." Right. We talk to people, we see people all everywhere the time that we know.
It affects everyone. You never know who this is going to affect, and we're here to help you for any situation that you may find yourself in.
Right now, we represent at least 3 attorneys, definitely a physician, definitely a spouse of a physician.
For sure.
It's engineers.
And it's all
teachers.
And it's all because of this. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, and circumstances may happen. No one ever plans to be here, but sometimes this is where we are, and that's why you find attorneys that are best suited to help you. And
Hopefully that's
we
you
hope
think
so.
of us. Right. So most of our reviews on Facebook say this is the best 20 minutes on Facebook. Hopefully you'll agree. Tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. and we're going to fill you in on how we can help you through a difficult financial times caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Join us next week, same time, same place, same top-notch information and advice. 856-546-9696, Jenkins and Clayman. For Jeff Jenkins, who took the week off, and Stephanie Ritigstein, I'm Eric Clayman, wishing you a good week, and tune in next week.
Sounds great. Bye-bye, everyone.